What's up, everybody? I'm Johnny Christ, and this is Drinks with Johnny. Thank you so much for checking out the show, and thanks to Sweet Drop CBD Oil for sending me some stuff. As many as you know, lately I've been starting off every show with this Sweet Drop CBD, particularly Blood Orange. Now, it doesn't really alter my mind or anything like that. I don't feel that much different, but I just, in my brain, feel like I'm firing on all cylinders. So I'm going to start off the show before I get into it. Perfect. And if you head over to sweetdrop.com, you can find out all the information about CBD or cannabis oil that you need to know about and see if it could help you with anything you got going on. And guess what? If you use promo code DrinksWithJohnny, you're going to get 20% off your order. That's Drinks with JOHNNY. It's at sweetdrop.com. So make sure you guys go check that out. Now, before I get into it, I'm excited. Very excited for this week's episode. I'm joined by a very awesome person, and I'm really excited to introduce him, but I just want to remind everyone, this is also a podcast. I know we're watching it right now on YouTube probably, but you're going to head over and subscribe to the podcast. For me, I like listening to podcasts when I got shit to do. I can throw it on and I could go about my day, just throw some headphones on, whatever it may be that you have to get done. You can just listen to this whole episode that way too. So make sure you're subscribing anywhere you listen to podcasts. Now, as I said, I'm really excited. I got singer-songwriter, just great musician. He recently did a West Coast versus Wessex with NOFX. Frank Turner, how you doing today, man? All the way from London.
All the way from London town. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. So I got to start it off by asking about how life is over there in London right now with the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic that's going on.
I've been calling it the boring apocalypse myself. It's a strange year. It's a strange time to be alive. And it's funny. A lot of people talk about this year as if it's kind of one monolithic experience, and I don't think that's true. It's been very different. Back in March, things were pretty catastrophic. I had to cancel a tour that I was on at the time and come home and then cancel an awful lot of shows that were coming up and all the rest of it. And then there was a period of time when basically couldn't leave the house, and there wasn't enough food in the local shops and this kind of thing. And that was all pretty real, and indeed sort of feels a little bit like a bad dream now. Things have kind of eased up a bit here. You can go for dinner at your friend's house, and you got to wear face masks in shops and this kind of thing. But it's easier than it was. Unfortunately, the one industry that is still completely poleaxed by all of this is live music, which is what totally. I do for a living.
Dude, we have no idea when that shit's getting back. We got to be honest. Yeah. It's probably the last thing that's going to get back to normal.
No, well, essentially there's no getting around the fact that what I do for a living involves gathering people together in large numbers, which is apparently medically advisable right now. So, I'm not it's not like I'm complaining about the situation necessarily, but it's funny because an awful lot of my friends who work in other parts of the economy or whatever, life's really starting to get back towards something approaching normality for them now. And I'm kind of sat here, basically with every passing day, I just feel more like I'm unemployed.
Well, I guess I totally agree. But you have been doing some shows. I saw that you guys are trying some live settings over there in London, if I'm not mistaken. There was a couple things I saw that you did not too terribly long ago.
Yeah, so there was, the major thing that I did was, so the government over here announced that they were going to sort of let people have reduced capacity indoor shows subject to a pilot event, and seeing how that went. And I ended up playing the pilot show over here. And it was really weird. It was cool. It was really, really nice to be on a stage in front of people again. I got emotional about stuff like the monitor wedges and, the fact there was a sound guy and stuff like that. And, the kind of the crap trash receptacle in the dressing room or whatever, and it was amazing being in a room with other people there. Cause I did 27 live stream shows during the depths of lockdown. And
Jesus, so you kept yourself really busy.
Yeah, I did it. I ran a campaign to raise funds for music venues, and we raised about £200,000, which I was pretty.
Wow, that's incredible. And what was that? Before you step over that, I want to make sure, is that something that's still running that you guys are still working on?
There is still kind of a generalized fund, but the way I did it was each week I did a show for a different independent venue, and we raised between £10,000 and £15,000 for each venue. So
wow, that's incredible.
And did 14 of those, and then there was a bunch of other stuff going on. But and then I did one full band live stream a couple of weeks ago, which was just sort of, it wasn't a benefit show necessarily, although I'm doing a thing at the moment of I'm trying to keep paying my band and my crew through lockdown if possible, because they've also lost their jobs. So there was a fundraising element to it, should we say. But yeah, I've been trying to keep busy, but playing to an actual audience at that pilot show was awesome, because it was different to playing to the back of your phone or a laptop, or whatever.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And I was grateful for that. But it was weird because, essentially the problem we have over here is the economics don't make any sense. The capacity is reduced so much, and then the staff requirements are increased so much that venues will go out of business being open.
Oh, absolutely.
Under current regulations.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't realize. Like, everyone's like really starving for music right now, or just entertainment in general. And we're getting that. I see it everywhere. Like, when's Avenged's new record going to be? Everything. Everyone's starving for something to do right now, and I understand that. But as you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned it. The economics of it just really aren't there. There's a lot of cool ideas that people are trying, and I'm glad you were able to raise so much money for your crew and other people who are going out of business, basically. And
yeah, totally. So, it's a funny old one, because like at the beginning of lockdown, and I think a lot of people, certainly over here, a lot of people kind of forget this, is when it started, like there was a moment when it was going to be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at that point in time, it was like, cool, I can raise an amount of money that's just going to completely solve the problem. You know what I mean? One show up a venue and we're done and it's all good. And obviously now that situation's changed pretty radically. The government has now also stepped in over here and said that there is some funding for music venues, which is kind of cool. Obviously the devil is in the detail about how that's going to get distributed and to who and when and all that kind of business. But yeah, it's been a strange old time.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy. Have you seen? Well, obviously you're closer to it. Some of these European festivals that are trying to put tables out and stuff and separate everybody. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so there's a thing. I don't know about kind of actual pre-existing festivals, because I think that this is the thing that kind of bothers me, is that like people trying to sell tickets for an event that's sort of pretending to be quote unquote normal. Yeah. That can stray into territory that almost feels a little duplicitous to me at times, Whereas, the thing that's really starting up right now over here is kind of like people who own campsites are kind of like trying to put on an event where there's a stage and then everybody stays in their tent and then it's kind of socially distanced that way. And I think that's kind of interesting, so I think that, it's cool that people are kind of trying different stuff. The other thing, of course, is that there's people just kind of booking festivals and shows and tours and stuff for next year, for next summer, even for next spring, that are just kind of normal. And I have a kind of ethical issue with that, because it's just like, it's not going to happen.
No, it's not. No, like, I'm so glad you said that, because it truly is false hope. There's no way we're getting back to the capacity that we could just have. I hope they could still put on the festival of some kind, but it's not going to be the same way. There's just there's no chance in hell.
No, totally. I guess the thing is, none of us know what's going to happen. And, 6 months ago, none of us knew that we were going to be here. And, people talk about a vaccine would change the dynamic pretty dramatically. And of course, I think a lot of people's kind of hopes are resting on that. And if I'm wrong about all of this, I'll be extremely pleased. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. It's safe to say this right now, because as you said, if we're wrong about our pessimism, it's going to be, we'll be very happy.
I'll be overjoyed. Yeah, completely. Not least because I might be able to make a living again, which would be nice. Yeah. So, we'll see, obviously. But I guess that, one of the things I'm doing is trying to err on the side of caution. One thing that sort of line of thought that I had that was kind of interesting was like, if you think about eras like Prohibition in the States or Second Summer of Love in the UK in the late 1980s, there was a scene called the Free Party scene where people were running illegal raves. So they would just like hire a sound system, go and set up in the middle of a forest and have a massive ecstasy-fueled rave. And like these, as somebody grew up with kind of like punk rock and anarchism and stuff, like those are very attractive kind of models to me, that idea of kind of telling the man to go fuck himself and going and doing what you do anyway. Yeah. And I thought about that a lot. The problem is that rebelling against, the government is one thing, and rebelling against public health measures. Yeah,
I totally agree.
Not quite the same
at the
thing.
beginning, you'd see like comments from. I read all my comments. I don't know if you're one of these people. They don't bother me, but I like to see what the fans are saying when I post something or whatever. And they're all talking. They're like, a rock star that actually follows the rules. I'm like, it's really not about the rules, man. Like,
it's about consideration for other people.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and that's just, I'm not a piece of shit, you know. Like, I just want to, like,
right, you know.
I am to an extent. Well, I am to an extent. Let's be honest, but like, not like.
But a friend of mine put it this way. He said, you know, he said, do you think you could take the hit if you put on like an illegal show and then it got identified as a coronavirus outbreak source? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, both kind of like politically, if you like, for my career, but also like morally for myself. I'm not sure I could or would handle that, you know?
No.
So, you know, and that's actually what we're talking about here. So like, I want to get back to playing as much as anybody. And in fact, like, it's funny, I don't want to get overly kind of like defensive here, but sometimes people are like, oh man, you know, we just really miss live music. And it's like, you miss live music, motherfucker? Let me tell you about missing live music, because it's not just that it's my life and the thing I've done pretty much every single day for 2 decades. It's also how I pay my fucking rent. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, no, and not only just the artists too. Like you said, again, going back to that charity stuff, it's not just about the artists, the venues, the promoters. All these things are going to take such a big hit. Not even to mention the guys living check to check on the road, putting stuff together, or even locally, the local stagehands. That's what they do. You know, they're in there just, you know, bringing in gear, and that's their job, and they don't have a job right now.
Totally. And there's a huge number of people, but I guess one of the things is that, like, you know, so we have a thing over here right now, which is this, that like they sort of said that you could go overseas for a holiday again, and that was okay, and there were certain places you could go, and people start going, and now they brought in these kind of quarantine restrictions on people coming back from certain countries if those countries have like spikes in the virus. Yeah. And the thing about it is that only had to happen once before everyone was like, well, fuck going away again. And this is the similar thing with the live music thing. You know, if somebody started putting on shows and just going, look, fuck it, we're going to take the risk, and then it went badly, you actually take like 3 steps back rather than a step forward.
1000%.
Because, you know, everyone's going to go, well, I'm not going to shows anymore. And you have to kind of take the bigger picture about the whole thing. It's really, really hard, man. And you know, who knows who's getting it right or who will get it right or what the right thing to do is. But
right now that's the thing. A lot of, you know, people are asking for things, and I'm glad we're talking about it as musician to musician. You know, we're hearing things directly from promoters. We're hearing things directly from people. We're feeling it directly from ourselves. So like, let everyone know, like, hey, straight up, we have zero idea when shit's getting back to normal as far as concerts go. Yeah, totally. There's no way of knowing. But you did say you did get to play. You felt great in front of the fans. I got to imagine it was probably, I mean, you're playing acoustic and by yourself on the stage, I imagine. So it's a little easier, but everyone's got to be at tables and separated still. Like, how's that energy? Because, I mean, I know you feed off the energy of the crowd, and like when they're sitting down, it's a little different.
Well, one of the weirdest parts of it is that we got told, because this was like a month ago now, we got told that the audience were not allowed to sing along because of it, like aerosol projection.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I kind of agreed to do the show. We hadn't yet announced it, and I got told that was one of the regulations, and I very nearly backed out of it at that point, because I was just like, that's so at the heart of what I do specifically, you know, like trying to kind of reach that moment of transcendence when the kind of barriers between performer and audience break down and it becomes a communal activity and yada, yada, yada. But, you know, and it was just like, but even just the idea is like, am I really going to stand on stage and like tell people off if they start singing along, you know?
Well, it shouldn't be your responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, but in the end, you know, a big part of the reason why I did the show was to be able to say, I feel like as an industry, we need to be showing ourselves to be kind of willing to try stuff. Do you know what I mean? If the government says, hey, try this, and we go, no, well, then we've lost the ability to continue the argument in any way.
Yeah, absolutely right.
We did the show, and people weren't allowed to sing. I mean, I tried to get a hum along going at one point. That was pretty cool because I figured that didn't involve aerosol projection. But I mean, I have to say, the act of being on stage and the atmosphere in the room was amazing. Like, it was weird as hell, you know, like people were at separate tables and there was table service and there was like one-way systems around the room, and like there was even like staggered arrival times for ticket holders, so everyone didn't show up at the same time. We had fucking we had paparazzi photographers showing up trying to take photos of people going in that looked like unsocially distanced to do a hit piece in the tabloid papers over here, which was just like
which I gotta mention, I love the tabloid papers over in England, by the way. I've dealt with them for a long time, and like when we first came over, it was all love, and the next time we came over, it was all trying to find dirt on you. Like it's in, and I'm talking about years ago when we were like literally nobody, and like they were still doing it. I just find the press over in England is just so different than everywhere else.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. But yeah, so there was so many restrictions, but like the actual atmosphere in the room while I was playing was kind of incredible. You know, like people, though I say so myself, but like, do you know what I mean? Like the vibe of the room was just like
they probably all had fun. I mean, they didn't really have anything better to do, right?
Well, this is the thing, man. Like, there's a huge part of this that is sort of like, I'm sort of loath to talk about too much, but also kind of can't really be overstated. Is this like, it's not just that I've lost my job and lost my income and all this kind of thing. It's like, it's my identity. Do you know what I mean? This is what I do. I travel and I play shows, and that's what I've done all the time for 2 decades or more. And to just flat out to go from being in the middle of a tour to like, nope, go home, can't do it.
Yeah, man.
And indeed cancel. I mean, I canceled about sort of 4 or 5 months of shows that were announced, but as you know as well as I do, you have loads of other shit planned as well that you haven't announced yet. So we bend off like a year's worth of shows.
Shit, man.
And it was utterly kind of like gut wrenching and really like affected my sense of myself. And to get back out on the stage again, I was kind of nervous. Do you know what I mean? It was
I'm sure. God, like you probably don't get nervous that often anymore after doing it for a couple of decades.
Right, because I do this.
You get excited.
So much.
Like everyone asks, do you still get nervous when you go on stage? Like, no, I get excited now. I like, exactly. Yes, the first few times, obviously, but like, or something that's different. I mean, I got to imagine just because it's different. It's just, but I digress. We'll get off this sad note for now. I'm sure it'll come back up a couple more times. But when this actually airs, you will have already done it, but you're playing, you're virtually sharing the stage with Bruce Springsteen. How did that go?
Well, I mean, we hung out backstage, and I don't know, man. Like the Joe Strummer birthday thing, right?
Yeah, the Joe Strummer thing. Yeah, you guys are doing a song. It's called a song for Joe. Is the title of the virtual festival, I believe, is what you'd call it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, the thing about that was like, so I do a lot of work with the Joe Strummer Foundation, which is a charity that was set up by Joe's family after he died, and is currently like run and staffed by a lot of old friends of mine. So, and we do tons and tons of shows together. I go to Sierra Leone every year under their aegis for one of their projects out there, and it's kind of music related charity stuff, and that's really cool. And like, I had no idea like who else was on the lineup for this thing. They just sent me a message saying, "Hey man, we're doing a thing for Joe's birthday and getting a few people to play a song. Are you up for it?" And
that's how they said it. Like they kind of mumbled it to you like that too.
Yeah, pretty much. And the thing is, they asked me to do this kind of stuff pretty regularly, and so I was like, "Yeah, cool, no worries." And cracked out a cover because I can pretty easily, and fired it over, and just sort of didn't really think about it. And then they sent me the poster for the announce, as it were, and I was like, holy shit, like that's a lineup right there, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, and then as I say, the virtual dressing room, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean that must have been insane. I mean, I read somewhere that Bruce Springsteen was kind of one of the main reasons why you, we'll get into a little bit of it in a second, but kind of where you started to go more, I don't want to say folksy, but more singer-songwriter than the other.
Definitely. I mean, I wasn't super familiar with him or familiar at all, actually, growing up. And
well, he's an American hero, not an England hero. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. Like, in terms of, like, if you're not paying attention, my perception of Bruce Springsteen when I was kind of young, and particularly when I was into, like, punk rock records as a teenager, was he was that guy in the blue jeans and the white shirt with the American flag.
Blue collar, man. That's what it was all about.
Yeah, but it seemed really cheesily American, and I was into.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
But I was into the Clash, and I'm So Bored of the USA and stuff like that, and it just sort of didn't really like seem to me like it would have any meaning in my life or any appeal to me. And then a friend of mine gave me a copy of Nebraska, and that wasn't like the only thing that happened. I think it somewhat somewhere out there on the internet, possibly on Wikipedia, it kind of says that like that was this life-changing moment for me. It's not quite that simple. Like there was a bunch of shit going on at that time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no,
like,
totally. It's never that simple. I just had to bring it up because, as I said, you're virtually going to be sharing the stage with them. I'm sorry, you already have. It was yes, fantastic. Right, okay.
Well, I'm gonna drop the name here and blow my own trumpet. Forgive me that, but I think it was last year. He actually he had a big old feature on him in like Vanity Fair or something like that, and they had a section where they asked what he was listening to, and he listed me.
That's awesome.
Which was pretty kind of like cool. I'm done now. Do you know what I mean? See you guys later. My career has peaked.
No. Well, I mean, and he's a fan for good reason. I got to be honest, I didn't know too much about you before this West Coast versus Wessex that you guys did with that you did with NOFX.
Sure.
And I knew you, a little bit as a singer-songwriter, heard a couple things, but had no idea that there was this punk rock background. In all honesty, I hadn't heard the Million Dead or Mongol Horde that you did before. And
my dirty secrets.
What's that?
My dirty secrets.
Yeah, your dirty secrets, really. How secretive is that? It's not too secretive anymore.
No, it's not really. I mean, Million Dead was secretive because we weren't that successful.
Well, I got to ask about this Mongol Horde, though. This project you had. I know it was a long time ago, though, but you had like it was more satirical lyrics, I guess, or something like that. A little lowbrow.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It's a long time ago. I mean, we did a tour last year, actually, with that band, and and we sort of. The thing about that band is that it's me, it's Matt who plays keys in my regular band, and it's a guy called Ben who is in Million Dead with me. So we're a three-piece. It's drums, baritone, guitar, and vocals. Awesome. And like the initial kind of idea behind doing it was just that I kind of missed hanging out with Ben. Like he and I played together in bands from the age of 10 till the age of 23, and then I went off and did the solo thing. And I just sort of didn't see him that much anymore. And I also kind of missed playing aggressive music because that's what I grew up with. Yeah. And so, but then beyond that, it's like right from the word go, the point of the band was to be kind of absurdist, and like there's some sort of like historical referencing stuff going on there because I'm a massive history nerd. But the general point is it's supposed to be kind of like completely OTT and kind of ridiculous and weird and uncomfortable and all the rest of it.
I love that shit.
We're very much influenced by stuff like kind of like Jesus Lizard, and that kind of territory of kind of weird, uncomfortable, sort of hardcore rock noise kind of crossover stuff. So it's a ton of fun. I mean, and this is the thing, like the point of that band is it's supposed to be fun, and if it ever starts feeling like work, then we'll just like back off. And I'm busy enough doing what I regularly do. We did one record in 2014. We have plans to do another one. We even like talked about some riffs once upon a time, but like I couldn't tell you when it's going to happen.
No. I mean, you can't tell. I mean, again, not to the elephant in the room will keep coming back up. Who knows when's the right time to put out a record? When's the right time to do anything right now? Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, totally.
But
it's tough.
Yeah, then you mentioned like just being into hard rock in general. I read somewhere that you're an Iron Maiden fan, and one of your first records was Killers, actually, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was kind of I was 10 years old. Like rock and roll hadn't really affected my life in any way. Obviously, it was around. Yeah. In terms of like car adverts or whatever the fuck, but like, I didn't really listen. Music wasn't really a thing in my life, and then. Basically, I was into Games Workshop, which is like Dungeons and Dragons type shit.
Yeah, okay. Right on.
I saw an Iron Maiden poster at my friend's house when we were playing Games Workshop, and I assumed that it was related. Do you know what I mean?
I could see how that would work. Yeah. Eddie looks like he could be a character on one of those boards.
Right. Yeah. So I said to my friend, "Oh, that's what's that? That's cool." And he said, "Oh, it's a band that my brother likes." And I was like, get out of here. There's no band that's that fucking cool. It's not possible. And a couple of days later, got a copy of Killers on cassette, and it was like a switch flicking in my brain. I'm a diehard Maiden fan and always will be.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you mentioned that it came from a poster. I find, obviously the music is amazing from Iron Maiden, but for a lot of people, that imagery that they made with Eddie is so iconic, and like it's so inspiring just by looking at something that I feel like your story is probably not extremely unique in the sense that you saw a poster or saw Eddie somewhere first and then got into Iron Maiden.
The other thing about Maiden, which I think is really cool, and a number of guys in the band have actually mentioned this, is like what they did is that they made their frontman not a member of the band almost, you know what I mean? So in terms of kind of like, you know, sort of the pressures of fame, or like sort of, you know, a lot of bands get, as I'm sure you know, get fucked with because everybody focuses on one member of the band to the exclusion of all others or whatever. And like almost Eddie kind of slightly kind of drew the poison out of that for that
Totally.
band, you know what I mean? Because it was like it was who's the frontman, who's the leader? It's Eddie, you know, and the rest of them can just be a band behind it.
Yeah, it took me until really like, I mean, when I started doing this as a profession, started doing music as a profession, to realize how much it was really Steve Harris's band in a lot of respects.
Oh, yeah.
As the bass player. Then
you know what, man?
Then you go out and tour with them, and you go out to and they're the fucking coolest guys in the world. They're so nice.
Yeah, dude, I've met everyone in Maiden apart from Steve Harris, and it really, really bothers me.
Oh man, if you know, I don't see him very often. I haven't seen him in like 3 years. We ran into each other in a hotel, and I had a little chat with him. If I run into him again before you see him, I'll make sure that he goes out of his way.
Okay, that's kind.
So let's get into the main thing that I want to talk about is this West Coast versus Wessex NOFX split that you did.
Yeah.
You start off with the easy stuff, like how did it come together? Who reached out to who? I know that you'd probably previously done an acoustic cover of Linoleum, so you were obviously a fan of NOFX, I imagine, before. But how did the marriage come together? What was the idea behind it? Just to start this whole conversation off.
Well, so you know, I've been friends with Mike for about a decade. We met at Reading Festival, and actually, so the way that we met was kind of funny. Like, NOFX I played on the main stage that day. NOFX were like headlining the punk stage. And I went over to hang out because I was done for the day and I was in a really good mood because we just played this huge fucking show.
Yeah.
And went over to see NOFX, and they were finishing with a decline. And you know, as you may well know, that song, quite often they get a guest guitarist up at the end to play Hefe's guitar while he plays the trumpet. And Matt Skiba was supposed to be doing it, and Skiba had gone AWOL, as he often does. And there was a bit of a kerfuffle kind of backstage, and everyone was like, well, who's going to play the guitar? And a mutual friend kind of went, well, Frank can do it. And the guys in NOFX were like, who the fuck is he? But there was no one else kind of volunteering. So I kind of stepped forward, and Mike came over and he said, do you know the chords to the end of the decline? And I was like, I know all the chords to all your songs. And then it was like, yeah, I can probably figure it out, you know. And they were like, fine, whatever. And then they did the show, and I kind of ran on at the end and did the guitar. And Mike always says that, like, so I did play the guitar, but I also did the backing vocals. And he said, you know, we've had 1 million people play guitar in that, but no one had ever done like backing vocals before.
That's so he just went for it, yeah.
Yeah, I know the song really well. I grew up with NOFX's music. I'm an enormous fan. And so Mike kind of checked out my stuff, and the next time I played in LA, he came down to hang out. And we just got on. So we've been friends for about a decade. But last summer, we crossed paths at the festival, as you know how it is.
It's so great. That's usually when you know, we're not always exchanging numbers all the time, you know. Sometimes you don't see anyone until like, you know, whatever. And then, but like I'm so glad you pointed out going over and checking out another band while you were, you know, one of your favorite bands. I've had that experience so many times where you're playing a show, and you might go like over there before your show, like, you know what I mean? You're like just so excited to go see somebody, you know.
Oh, totally. It's better if it's after though, because then you're done for the day. You can have a beer. You can
absolutely. I could have, you know, just 1 or 2 beers, not too many or anything like that.
Yeah, So last year we were at a festival in Italy, and it's that thing. Quite often, if you're doing a lot of festivals in festival season, as I'm sure you know, you wake up and you almost like you were like, where are we? Like, who's playing? Read the schedule and you go, oh, so and so's here. That's cool. And then you run over and you say hi. And we had that NOFX playing, so you know, ran over and said hi to Mike. And then basically that evening, we played, and then Sick of It All played, and then NOFX played.
Nice.
And during Sick of It All's set, I was hanging out with Mike on the side of the stage, and he just turned around and said, hey man, do you want to do it? He said, what would you think about doing a cover split? Obviously, so I know about the Rancid cover split they did, and indeed that kind of history of cover splits in the 80s and the 90s and the hardcore scene. It was a big thing. You know, he said, do you want to do one? And I kind of shit myself, basically, because the thing is, like, Mike is a genuine, straight up, he's a good friend of mine. He's a fucking lovely guy, and he's been wonderful about presenting the split as kind of a meeting between equals. But there is one level on which that isn't true, which is that I grew up with posters of Mike on my bedroom wall, and he did not grow up with posters of me on his bedroom wall. You know what I mean? So,
I love that.
I wasn't born yet,
Yeah, I was gonna say, it might have. I mean, he might have, but the time lapse.
There's a whole other slant on that story. But yeah, so he asked, and I said yes immediately. I think part of it is because we, as friends, a lot of our friendship is based around talking about songwriting in a way that's kind of divorced from genre. We don't talk about being into punk or oi or hardcore or anything else. It's songwriting very purely. Yes. And one of the things about that is it enables you to focus on, what constitutes a song, and then what you can do with a song, how the different ways you can arrange a song, and all of that feeds into doing a cover split. And one of the coolest parts of the whole thing for me was that once we'd agreed to do it, we didn't even discuss this. It was just understood that no one was going to have any opinion about what the other person was doing until it was done.
Yeah, so you had no idea. Neither one of you guys had it, or neither one of you knew which songs you're going to pick, why, and how you're going to redo them.
No idea what songs or what style or anything. It was just kind
of like... When was the first time you got to hear the split then? Was it when you were done?
Yeah.
Like right before release?
Not quite that much, but like Mike sent me like a zip file with their finished mastered songs in it. And which was really cool because I got to listen to it kind of as an objective listener. Almost,
yeah, which is awesome. I can only imagine hearing someone else's, and having one of your heroes, as you said, posters on the wall doing your songs. That's
and he's and they're a band with a very distinctive style and sound and all the rest of it. And hearing lyrics that I wrote and chord changes that I wrote, whatever in that style was just like, oh shit, it was super cool. And then Mike's been very complimentary about our side of the split. I'm pretty proud of what I did with the songs. I think I found a way into them that was kind of different from the original, which is the point, obviously.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm so glad you perfectly laid me up into this, dude. What you did to these NOFX songs that I grew up loving, as you did, was fucking pure genius. I mean, I think for me, being a bass player and looking up to Fat Mike as a songwriter, bass player, all of the above, his bass lines have always been something that I've transcribed and done the whole nine as a kid. And I feel like a lot of the bass lines that you changed up really kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, really kind of staged a lot of what's going on around it, I mean, what you did with Eat the Meek, just typically more of like a reggae song, and you'd put this, you took the chords and put a different bass line underneath it, and it just completely changes the feel of the song. What was your approach to, every song or each song? How did you approach, how you're going to change shit up?
I mean, I guess, the changing it was the major kind of directive. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's no point in doing it the same way. Otherwise, I'm just going to listen to the original. And then beyond that, broadly speaking, I wanted my side of the split to be stylistically diverse. I mean, in the music that I make regularly, it's quite stylistically diverse. I wanted to kind of reflect that and not do everything kind of in the same way. And then once I'd done that, it was, picking the songs was kind of interesting because on the one level, you go for your favorite songs. But then with some of them, it's kind of like, I don't know how to change this, or to make it different, or at least kind of justify a different version of it or whatever. So, it was about finding songs where I felt like I could put my stamp on it. So just briefly, so we did Scavenger Type because I wanted to do kind of like in quotes, like a punk version of one of their songs. But there's no point in trying to do a punk version of a normal NOFX song. Totally. Because they are punk already. So, and then I thought about it, and it was like, I remembered Scavenger Type. That's a song that's acoustic in the way they do it. So it was like, cool, let's do, and obviously my version of punk is pretty different from the NOFX version, like musicologically, but nevertheless, it was like, cool, we're doing an aggressive version of that song. Then like Bob, I've always thought that Bob was secretly like a 70s country song. It sounds like George Jones to me, like, lyrically.
That's a brilliant observation. I've never noticed it like that. I mean, that I've heard your cover, I've heard it in a different light. But I mean, when listening to it as a kid, I was just like, I mean, it was like a ska punk song. It was like during an era where like ska punk was popular, and I was like, oh, they're They'd have a little ska part in it, just probably kind of poking fun as they do to most things, and the rest of the song is a NOFX song.
No,
It's a punk song.
But it's just, I always thought that, I mean, I'm a huge fan of like country music, all country music, actually, but, well, apart from some of the modern pop stuff, but let's not go there. But like,
wait, no, let's go there. Why don't you name a few names for me, Frank?
I don't know, the kind of the modern kind of Nashville sound is not really for me.
Yeah, no, totally. I get you.
But you know, one of the things I love about the songwriting of kind of like, you know, the old kind of like Merle Haggard and George Jones and Loretta Lynn, stuff like that kind of stuff, is that it's like, is the perfectly turned phrase, you know, and there's such kind of delicacy and precision in the lyrics. I mean, even as a kid, I remember hearing that, like, the doctor said, "What have you been thinking about?" And Bob said, "That's the point. I want to think about nothing." That's a fucking country lyric right there, you know, and so I picked that one because I wanted to try and do a country version of it, and that was a lot of fun. Perfect Government, we just kind of did in, I guess, sort of in my regular wheelhouse. Do you know what I mean? In the way that of songs of mine, like Recovery or Still Believe or whatever. It's like, let's do one that's just straight down the line. You know what I mean? And then Falling in Love is a song that pretty much the first time I hung out with Mike socially after we met at Reading, we got drunk together, and I said to him, you know, man, Falling in Love is like one of your best songs. And he looked at me and he was like, I think that too, but literally no one else in the world does.
Oh no,
and
no,
I said,
he just isn't listening to people, because that is, I 1000% agree with you. Like, Falling in Love. Yeah, when I heard that song on So Long Thanks for All the Shoes, I was just like, what the? This isn't even a NOFX song. This is just a beautifully written song. Like, I mean, it's
right. Yeah, it's a whole other thing. And so, and again, you know, trying to find a different way into it, kind of went for that kind of Leonard Cohen kind of approach to it. But then the one, and I've saved it to last because it's my favorite song on our side of the split, is Eat the Meek. I love that song, the original. It's got that kind of dubby reggae feel, as you mentioned. And this is, to me, the sign of a good song, is that, like, when we first started coming at it, me and my band, we kept ending up in the original arrangement sort of by accident. Yeah. You know, no matter where we started, we kind of slip back into the way they play, that's a vote of confidence in the song, right?
Oh, yeah. If you keep going back to you're just like, this is what it's got to be. There's no overthinking it now. Like, this is what it's going to be. Right.
And so we nearly kind of abandoned it on that level, but I just so wanted to do that song. And then the breakthrough moment was the magic word, which was Fugazi. I'm an enormous Fugazi fan, as everyone in my band. And like I said to Tarrant and Nigel, my bass player and my drummer, like, what if you guys played it like Joe Lally and Brendan Canty, you know, and tried to kind of pull something out of that kind of like Kill Taker era Fugazi or whatever. And straight away they slipped into that bass groove, that, you know, which is on the song. It's how the song opens.
And then it was like first thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, so then it was like, cool, now we have our template, you know, and we can move from here. And then the rest of it, you know, it's got a kind of national feel to it, vocally almost, I'd say. That was my intention. And sort of there's some kind of pretty kind of droney, epic, Eno-esque kind of shit going over the top. But yeah, I'm really pleased with how that one
I'm so glad that that's the one that you're most proud of right now, because in perfect honesty, I think it is the best one. You know, I think Falling in Love was great, but you know, that's hard to, I mean, as we said, it's a masterpiece of a song. You know, it's hard to, you did a great job with it, but I think the reinvention of Eat the Meek was really something that really stood out to me. So obviously you went through the songs that you picked. How did you feel when you found out the songs that they picked and you were listening back? Like, were you kind of like, oh, they picked Subtle, where you could kind of hear a little bit, I don't know if it was intentional, but you could kind of hear a little bit of NOFX style chords in that song, in your your original version of it.
Oh yeah, totally. Which is it's because they are an influence on my songwriting, because I've listened to them endlessly since I was a teenager. You know, actually one of the ones that was funny to me, and Mike was not aware of this. The one of the songs I did is called "The Ballad of Me and My Friends," and there's a line at the end of that, which has sort of turned into one of the more popular songs I've ever written. Lyrics I've ever written, I should say. We're definitely going to hell. We'll have all the best stories to tell. And the first part of that, actually, I remembered kind of when I listened to NOFX Side of the Split, they have a B-side from years ago called "I'm Definitely Going to Hell for This One," and which doesn't feature that line in the actual song. It's just the title of the song. And I was just, when I heard it, I was like, you fucking idiots. If you're not going to use it, I'm going to use it. You know what I mean? So, and it kind of, and that's where that lyric kind of was birthed from. And and then it kind of came around full circle because then NOFX covered it. And it was just like, oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't really know what they were going to do or how they were going to do it, and it was all a pleasant surprise. I mean, I was happy for them to do what they wanted to do.
More specifically, I got to ask, how did you feel about LFA's impersonation of you on the record?
I thought it was an admirable effort. What can I say? I think that it's funny. Like, here's the thing. Like. And I might be completely misguided about this, but like in my experience as an English person, quite often an American will be like, "Oh, do you want to hear my English accent?" And we're always like, "Not really," but then we get it anyway.
I had the best thing. Real quick story. We were in Ireland actually, so I know it's not exactly the same, but we were asking, is it taboo for me to ask you for an Irish car bomb, a drink we have in America, and the name you drop Jameson and Guinness and you pound it, right? But it's obviously got to be somewhat offensive, right? And we're like, how do we order this drink without being offensive? And his response was like, and we're like, would you be offended? And he's all, would you be offended if I called you a cocksucking cowboy? I was like, a little, but I get your point. It's like you don't want to hear the accent. I know it's a little off topic, but you don't want to hear the accent done because it's like, no, you're not going to do it.
This is it. So Americans are always quite keen to volunteer their British accents, and they're generally, no offense, they're generally terrible because most of them seem to be based around. Most of them seem to be based around Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins, who is legendarily doing the single worst version of a Cockney accent anyone's ever done ever. And so, I'm quite, and the thing is, I'd never do the same to an American. I'd never be like, hey, do you want to hear my American accent? Like, it's just not a thing I'd ever do. But anyway, maybe that's just me. But yeah, I enjoyed Hefe's accent. It's fucking terrible.
So you don't want to give it a shot right here on the show? Do a little American accent?
No, I do not. No, because I know it's fucking awful.
Well, you never know until you try. You've never even tried, have you?
Oh, I have tried. I've tried and failed. I've swung and missed. You're not gonna drag this out of me. It's a valiant effort. You're not gonna drag it out of me.
I gotta try here. But again, such great work on the West Coast versus Wessex. Everyone, if you haven't already checked it out, make sure you go check that out, and all of Frank Turner's stuff. One of the other things I have to ask about, I know it was a long time ago, and you've probably answered everything under the sun there was about this very, very, very good day. But given the state of the world right now, aren't you glad you booked the 2012 Olympics versus the 2020 Olympics?
Well, I mean, thankfully the 2012 one was in the UK, so that's when I got the opportunity to do it. That was one of the weirdest fucking things ever. But I mean, I operate in life on the principle that you should probably say yes if you can, because life is short.
Fuck yeah.
And it's funny. I mean, I did get a little bit of backlash from some of like the punk scene for doing the Olympic thing. And it was just like, I mean, first of all, Danny Boyle asked me personally as a fan, what are you going to fucking say to that? No. But also, secondly, it's the way I justified it was like, I'd rather in 50 years' time, 60 years' time, I'd rather be the old guy in the corner of the bar telling the story about the time he played the Olympics, rather than being the old guy in the corner of the bar telling the story about the time he got asked to play the Olympics and said no. That's a worse story.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? No one wants to hear that story. Everyone's like, get the fuck out of here. The latter, the former story is so much better. You get free beer out of that story.
Right, exactly. There we go. So I'm buying my elderly self beers.
There you go.
Yeah, but it was cool, man. I mean, it was fucking weird, and like it was really strange because like, but just before we did it, there was one level in which it was like, is this going to like completely like explode my career into this enormous level? And bearing in mind that like shortly before we did it, I just headlined my first arena show and sold it out. I just got my first gold record. It wasn't like I was kind of like a complete unknown at this point. Yeah. But like, I had this like, is this going to be weird? Am I going to have this like overnight, suddenly I'm like fucking David Bowie type shit going on? And it totally wasn't that at all. Like, some people became aware of me when it happened, but I think most people saw it on the TV and went, who's that guy? And then carried on with their life. You know what I mean? And that's cool and it's fine, The one absolute definite positive that came out of it is before the Olympics was the last time my mum asked me when I'm going to get a real job.
Oh, and since then she's gotten off your back, or did something?
Yeah, she's definitely accepted that this is a real job once I played the fucking Olympics.
Well, that's all the reason you needed to fucking do it right there.
There we go. Yeah, proving it's my own.
Coming up, it looks like, you've signed on to do the Punk and Drublic tour.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to be doing it this year.
Yeah.
Actually.
So this is just a postponement of what was supposed to happen this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, with everything I said earlier about feeling a bit weird about people doing stuff next year, I mean, this is a postponement of a thing that I was already on last year and part of a package deal and all the rest of it. So it is what it is. I sincerely hope it happens. As we said earlier, I really hope that I'm wrong about my pessimism and all the rest of it. But I mean, basically, doing the Punk and Drublic tour was kind of part and parcel of doing the split with NOFX. It was like, cool, let's do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And indeed, hopefully an American leg and a North American leg, I should say, and indeed anywhere else they do it. I mean,
yeah,
I'm happy to do the whole thing. But yeah, we shall see what happens to that. Beyond that, I mean, I was supposed to be making a new record right now in California, which I'm evidently not doing.
Yeah. If you're in California, I want to be up this early doing this shit. Let me tell you. I was like running around. My hair's not done. I usually have my hair done and shit, and I'm just like, you know what? I got to throw a hat on and fucking get. It's 10 in the morning here. You're getting ready to go to bed at some point over there in London. But yeah, speaking on the Punk and Drublic thing, I bring it up mostly because here in California, when I saw them here at the beach, I literally can walk to the beach from my house and watch NOFX that time, which was amazing. On my own beach that I used to fucking surf all the time. And I digress. They had all these beers out. Obviously, they had their own Punk and Drublic beer that was popular before Fat Mike said some unkind things about country artists or something like that. That was they lost. They said something that was definitely not PC and a little too soon.
Story.
Everyone knows that story, and if they don't, they could go Google it.
Yeah, I mean, whatever one might say about Mike, he is a man who is operates under his own rules.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is punk as fuck.
No, dude, he's punk rock royalty. He doesn't even try. That's what even makes it even better punk rock royalty. I mean, I've had the pleasure of meeting Mike several times. We've done Warped Tours together. He always reintroduces himself to me because I'm not someone he's talking to all the time, but it's great. He's such a great dude on a personal level. All the crazy stories are true, however. Like he's got both sides.
He's a maniac.
Yeah,
he doesn't give a fuck, man.
Yeah,
he doesn't give a fuck.
It's fucking perfect. So I bring that up I bring up the beer, everything to ask, what is your favorite go-to drink? Like you say, and specifically if you're gonna say beer, you got to give me a kind of beer or at least or a label or something.
This is possibly the moment where our budding friendship is about to run into the rocks and collapse and die. But let me justify myself fully before you judge me. Right?
Okay, I'm ready. I'm all ears.
So there is a stereotype, right, that that the British people have warm beer. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a kid growing up and I'd never really been to the States, I was like, yeah, fuck you Americans. You know what you're talking about. We've got fridges in our pubs and all the rest of it, whatever. And then you go to the America and you tour, and in America, you guys have freezing cold beer and it's amazing. And it's so much better. And then
I'm worried about this setup because so far this sounds really good.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to buy you up. And and then you come back to England after being in the States, particularly if you go to the States for 3 months on a tour or whatever, you come home, you order a bottle of beer in the pub and it's kind of a degree cooler than room temperature and you're like, fuck this. You know what I mean? So I like my beers really, really cold and fizzy, and I'm just a fan of light American beers like Miller Lite and Bud Light and shit like that. I just like it, man.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I had to start somewhere too. I think I was about 15 when I first had my Coors Light or Miller Lite. I mean, I've graduated since then, and I don't mean to quote Step Brothers, but I remember my first beer too, buddy. So
no, I know, but it's funny though because I just if I'm drinking beer, I'd like my beer to be really light and kind of
no, it makes sense. No, I mean in all seriousness, Miller Lite's one of the things that we have on our rider every night. We'll have some of the craft beers too. We like to get local beers as well.
Well, it's funny. I get given. I'm sure you have this as well on tours. Just get given endless craft beer, and there's guys in my band who drink it, and that's cool, and it's very generous when people do that. And indeed, I'm always happy to be supportive of independent breweries and blah 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 blah. But it's like right now, like during lockdown, quite a few people have like been sending me like kind of care packages of like craft and weird and exciting beers. I'm like, oh, cool. Have you got any Budweiser?
So insulting. It's like going to the steakhouse and asking for a.
No, I know. It makes me a terrible human. And what can I say? I mean, I drink wine. And I'm actually my real, if I'm being posh, my real drink of choice at the moment is tequila, and like good like 100% agave tequila is a big thing for me, which I got into recently because I had to stop drinking whiskey. Because whiskey, I used to drink tons of whiskey, and it just really started disagreeing with my personality.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I mean, it takes some time, but like people, you kind of have to navigate it along the way. In all seriousness, I love drinking. Obviously, I have a show that somewhat revolves around drinking at some point. But at the end of the day, like I'm not really advocating everyone just go out and get a fucking alcoholic.
Oh yeah, sure.
But like,
well, of course, yeah. And actually, just as a brief aside, like one of the groups that I think has been underappreciated, the struggle they're going through in lockdown, is anyone who's in any kind of recovery. Because it's got to be a really shit time. Because, a lot of that kind of thing depends on support networks and like people, it's if you've been locked down
and the old adage, not to mention the old adage, idle hands, idle hands will, you finish it. Exactly. Somebody else who's smarter than me, but the fucking adage. Yeah, I mean, like when you got nothing else to do, it's like, I mean, I know at the beginning of this thing, I've tried. I had to look in the mirror at one point and it's like, you're getting a little plump there, buddy. It's time to.
Oh yeah, totally, man. Dude, the first kind of 2 or 3 weeks of this, I was pissed. Basically, I was just drunk because what the fuck else are you gonna do with the time? Yeah. But no, seriously, I mean, a few years ago, my buddy Larry, who's from a British emo band called 100 Reasons. Anyway, he taught me how to drink tequila properly. And how you drink tequila properly is you don't mix it with anything else. Yes. You just have a bottle of tequila and you put it in a shot glass, but you don't shoot it, you sip it. There's no salt, there's no lime, none of that bullshit. You just get good 100% agave tequila and you drink it slowly and you savor it and have it with ice. That's cool. And if you do that, it's a really pleasant evening. It's not like wild and out of control. It's just kind of a sunny evening and you don't feel too shitty the next day either.
Yeah, totally. And it's about the sipping versus the shooting, right? Because if you're taking shots, you don't feel it for a couple minutes. So you're like, oh, it's been 5 minutes. Let's take another shot. And then now it all comes back to you in about like 30 minutes. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, and then you can't talk anymore.
Yeah. Well, what's your favorite tequila though? What's your bottle what's your go-to bottle? Wow. I've got a couple go-tos.
You know what? If it was like my last drink on earth, or if there's no limits on this or whatever, the Don Julio 1942.
That's right. See, we're friends again now. Now.
That shit is, well, one of the things I love about that stuff is that it's so kind of earthy and smoky that it's almost like a whiskey.
Absolutely.
In texturally. I mean, of course, it costs an unbelievable amount of money, so it's not like a drink that I have regularly. But just before lockdown, the tour I was on, we sold out the tour basically, and my promoter had given me a present of a bottle of that as a congratulations for selling out the tour just before I had to come home. So I've had one bottle of it at home during lockdown, which has been cool.
That's so rad. Yeah, that's one of my go-tos as well. Smooth. Like, I'm glad you mentioned the whiskey taste of it. A lot of people don't realize that because they've only had silver tequila, but when you get into the añejos, right, they are sipping, they are smoky, they're everything you want them to be. You got to get into mezcals if you like whiskey too. If you like smoky whiskey, you got to get into mezcals as well.
No, totally. Well, I mean, I quite often get asked the question, like, what's one piece of advice you'd give the world? And my answer to that is this, which is never drink tequila that comes in a bottle that has a plastic hat.
Wait a minute. I don't know if you've seen the show. You can't see it right now. I have a novel. Next time you're in the States, next time you're in California, I got to have you come back with or without the cameras. You're going to hang out at my home bar here, and you got to drink it from the tequila hat. It is the worst. It's actually an entire hat. I'll show you in a second. We'll put a thing in there.
These words came out of Johnny's mouth. I don't know if it's good tequila. I've never had it before. It's a fucking cowboy hat filled with tequila, bro.
If it was bad tequila, they wouldn't waste the time putting it in a cowboy hat.
Yes, they would. That's why they would do it. Of course that's why they would do it.
I play games often when I have my guests on the show here up in the bar, and we'll do drinking games. And one of the main penalties that keeps coming back is you have to take a shot of this. And it's a novelty hat, easy for me to say, that it's the worst tequila I've ever had, and I've had some pretty bad tequilas.
Well, there's a lot of that tequila isn't even really tequila. Apparently, some of it's like vodka blends and stuff as well. And
Oh, I'm
it's
sure
just
it
like,
is. I think I picked it up at it was like a white elephant Christmas thing, and I ended up with it. But then, of course, I'm an asshole. I had to try it. And I just I'm not just going to not try it.
Yeah, right.
Man. But yeah, we're going to have you again. Thank you so much. We're going to have you in person down the line. Like I said, with or without the cameras, we got to hang. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Everyone follow Frank Turner on social media. It's just at Frank Turner. I started following. He's got some good shit that he's posting about. Again, thank you so much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure, man. So
it's a pleasure and an honor, man.
All right,
thank
man.
you.
Cheers. Thanks again to Frank Turner for being on the Drinks with Johnny show. Had an absolute blast talking to him. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Make sure you go check out everything Frank Turner. Again, the West Coast versus Wessex with NOFX split was absolutely amazing. I'm not bullshitting about that. It's really, I didn't know much about Frank before that. That's what I got him on the show for. So glad he was open to being on it, even virtually. And I think this will be the budding of a very good friendship in the future. Make sure you follow us everywhere at Drinks with Johnny. Make sure you hit the subscribe button right down here. Turn on your notification buttons. You don't want to miss all the guests that we're going to be having each and every week moving forward. Again, I said follow us. That's easy. Just at Drinks with Johnny everywhere. Pretty easy to find. Do a Google search. You'll find drinkswithjohnny.com where we have exclusive merch and all the archive of the podcast, the videos, everything, a newsletter that I try and get out every week that you could sign up for and get 20% off the merch that's on the store. Thank you guys so much for your support and checking out, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.